At the heart of what we would be hoping for would be an equity of outcomes for all students enrolled in the core units. So in order to be able to do that, we provide professional development for staff, and we give them practice with pre-moderation, peri-moderation and post-moderation. We also work hard to try to provide instances of collaboration, spaces where they can get together, to work together, to talk through some of the issues around moderation in particular. And we try to provide support for academic honesty, particularly around the major project. The approach we take to marking and moderation is to we do a mini moderation as part of a professional development day before a semester or a teaching period begins. So we might use a sample from a previous instance and we have staff mark that according to the rubric. Then we put them into small groups. So they're actually thinking about the end product of the unit prior to even beginning teaching the unit. And then during the course of the unit, depending on the nature of the assessment that we're using, but we would have, for example, if there was a short answer test as part of the assessment, we would provide staff with some sample answers detailing the sorts of things we're looking for. We provide them with marking advice. We invite them to a marking advice meeting so that they can ring from whichever campus they're on to clarify questions around what it is we're looking for or how the marking would be assigned, how the particular marks would be assigned. And we provide them with feedback sheets for students, and sometimes that includes a bank of comments that they might think is useful. And at the end of the semester for the major project, we bring them together at a face-to-face meeting on campus. We send samples, the same 5 or 6 samples, to all perhaps 100 staff teaching across the core units, and they would mark the same 5 samples. They would come together and they would meet with their completed rubrics and argue out where they think each sample sits, which leads to a very rich discussion about the interpretation of the criteria, the descriptors that are used in the rubric, and ultimately what the task is asking students to do, which may not be have a mastery of the content, but instead be able to show that they are, able to analyse or synthesise or whatever the skill might be that's being looked for in the learning outcome. Well, the core curriculum has a number of quite unique challenges, really. The first and most obvious being the sheer size of it, because UNCC 100 and UNCC 300 are taught across all courses for all students from all disciplines, so our student numbers can be overwhelming. In semester 2 of this year, we had 6,500 students enrolled in one unit across 6 campuses and well over 100 teaching staff. So the sheer size of it means that questions of equity across campuses is a huge challenge. Just as our students come from all the different disciplines of the university, so too do our staff. And of course the core units have a particular content, and not everyone is going to have an expertise or a familiarity with the content. So we do need to do professional development with our staff, and a lot of that is around how to assess some of these perhaps more philosophical notions or ideas that are at the heart of the core. The core curriculum is really born of ACU's mission statement, which enshrines 2 concepts that are at the heart of the Christian tradition. One is the common good and the other is the dignity of the human person. UNCC 100 deals with the common good, and so in that unit we introduce students to the principles of Catholic social teaching. It's very much about the human's place in the world. UNCC 300 unpacks the idea of human dignity and the multitudinous ways in which that can be understood. We use a framework to enable students to analyse particular arguments that might be founded in human dignity or a particular understanding of human dignity. ACU has aspirations that its students will be critical thinkers and ethical decision makers, and we introduce them to these key concepts that are at the heart of the Catholic tradition to enable them, I suppose, to be equipped to think about at least some of the issues that they will face both in their personal and in their professional lives. This, of course, requires a degree of sensitivity. Whilst we would argue that the Catholic tradition is an authoritative tradition and it has a valid voice in public debate, we're also very conscious that both our teaching staff and our student population come from a great diversity of religious traditions, or none. And so we do approach teaching the core with a sensitivity to that diversity of the student body. Well, staff feed back to us that the moderation process and the amount of support that they get in the marking advice and the meetings that they can attend or phone into, staff feed back to us that that they feel incredibly well supported. They often make comment actually that the moderation meeting is the best PD that they do all year. We do work very hard to develop a collegiality, and I think that that pays off. We still face enormous challenges, of course. The numbers are never going to go away. So things like the ratification of results meetings at the end of semester can be extremely time consuming. But many of the processes that we've put in place, I think, have met some of the challenges. I think the rigour with which we the core team, approach the needs to be equitable across the board, help instill in the staff a sense of rigour for their own practices, particularly around equity of marking and academic honesty.